The Premier League had a meeting yesterday and they released a statement. The start of the statement read, the safety of the supporters, the players and the staff remains the priority for any decision making going forward. It sounds nice, it's a platitude, but it ain't true. I'm not saying they don't care. I'm not saying they want anybody to get sick. But if it was a priority, they wouldn't play the Premier League at all. If the most important thing to them was nobody getting ill, they cancel the Premier League. It's as simple as that. If they cancel the Premier League now, not a single person gets sick as a result of it. What's happened? Well, a group of chairmen have had a conference call via Skype. As far as we know, it can't be contracted in that way. There's no risk. What about if players go to training grounds? Well, they can put everything in place, but there's an element of risk. You go into full contact training, even more risk. David Moyes himself has brought up the risk factor of a physio treating a player. And then you go all the way to its fullest conclusion, which is the games itself being refereed by officials and 300 odd people within a building, albeit a big one. That is clearly far more risk than nobody getting together at all. So clearly the priority is not to keep everybody as safe as possible, because as safe as possible is away from each other. So what are they going to do? They're going to try and implement a system whereby everybody is as safe as possible, bearing in mind there's loads of people in the same place. That's it, really. That's going to be a hard task, and that is going to be a really, really tough thing to do. In Germany, the country itself started to get a little bit more confidence. They felt that they were starting to tackle the issue, but it appears in their hospitals they're starting to experience almost a second wave of it. The confidence amongst them and well, not just the country itself, but the Bundesliga was enough for the clubs to return to training. Now, we hear yesterday that at one Bundesliga club, 3 people have tested positive. Now, I don't know. I think they might be players, but I stand corrected on that. But certainly 3 people that have gone to the training ground have since tested positive. What's happened? They have been isolated or sent home, something like that. And the rest of the group had carried on training. Now, we already know that there is no foolproof test that tells you categorically whether you have this thing or whether you don't. So I would understand if probably the remainder have had another swab test, a temperature check, but the temperature check's going to do nothing because you can have this thing and not have any symptoms. The point of the matter is, what are Cologne, I think it's Cologne, what are they going to do now? Well, the whole carry on regardless, I found to be quite strange. I would have thought at that point it would have been a case of, well, okay, we've come back to training, 3 people have tested positive now. We've created an environment, everybody's together, everyone needs to go, go away, isolate for 2 weeks, go back to your families. That's what I would expect to happen. The smile and carry on, yeah, I'm not so sure how wise that is, because let's be perfectly honest here, nobody is going to be at all surprised if that same club in 3 or 4 days' time reports some more positive tests, reports some more symptoms. Of course, I spoke about it, I touched on it in yesterday's video. You're then into a massive malpractice, lawsuits, things like that, which I think we're going to see anyway, just whether it's a lawsuit for this sort of thing or whether it's a lawsuit from the television companies or something. This is going to be a legal minefield, which people are going to be pouring over at the moment anyway. But let's just look at the football for a second. So they've lost 3 players, this particular club. Let's say they carry on and nobody else gets sick. Let's say every other Bundesliga club, it's a complete success, or marginally they miss players here, there, or everywhere. You're going to have players that can't play. So they're denied 3 players anyway. There will be some players who don't want to attend, because you may well have seen Sergio Aguero's comments yesterday that he didn't want to play football. Footballers don't want to go back and play football. It certainly echoes what Aaron Cresswell was saying, and we know that there are several players who are overseas. When this thing started, they went home. They're not going to want to come back. They might not even be able to come back. We're not even sure what the quarantine procedures are for people returning. My point is, this particular club are not going to be running at a full strength squad or even a full strength first team. They might have 4 or 5 first team players. There might be some youngsters in there. But it's going to be a mishmash. It's not going to be reflective of what the Bundesliga was before the pandemic hit. And I think that's going to be the same for all of the clubs. So are you getting a reflective Bundesliga? No. And this is really my point about this. I do agree that some level of football, some level of entertainment would be beneficial. Would be beneficial for particularly everyone's mental well-being, particularly the boredom factor as well, but only if the participants involved know what they're getting themselves into. Only if they're totally agreeable. Because I've noticed very much a couple of different mindsets. When this first started, or 3 or 4 weeks ago, or whatever it may be, I really noticed that people in shops were staying well away from each other. Everybody was very scared. Everyone was very masked up. You would see a few sort of flouting the rules who hadn't quite grasped it yet, but more or less, most people knew that we were in a strange situation and something that needed to be respected. Whether you thought you were capable of catching it or transmitting it or not, you were respectful enough to other people to know that other people would like their 2 metres personal space. I also noticed that there were a lot less cars on the road. Having noticed yesterday that the last time I went to the shops, there were more people getting closer. There were more people cutting across you to grab something off the shelves, whereas before people were waiting, now someone will lean over you and go, oh, excuse me, I'll just take that. And as I say, a lot more cars just driving around, which leads me to believe that either people are getting a little bit fed up with it, they're losing their discipline for it, or the third one is that people are just willing to think, okay, I'm probably not going to catch this. I'm sick of the way it's impacted my life. I just want to get back to some semblance of normality. So they're taking the car out, they're shopping in a way that they would usually shop, and so on and so forth. Now, I do think that football is going to mirror the mindset of what you'll see out in the shops and out on the roads. So I do believe there is going to be a cross-section of players who are thinking the same thing. Do you know what? We just want to get back. We're just going to go back and play football. However, whatever, we'll take the risk. It's fine. I'm young, I'm fit, I'm healthy. I'm probably going to be okay with this thing. I'm probably not going to suffer any more from it than any flu, which I've traditionally handled well anyway whenever I've got it. So there's going to be those type of people, the people that have had enough. But there are still going to be a lot of people like Sergio Aguero who don't want to go in. They say, well, I'm still scared. A lot of these players, particularly the foreign players, when they come over here, a lot of them move their families over them as well. So I know at least there's at least a couple of players at West Ham who, when they moved over, not only moved over with their spouses and their children, but they moved the mother and father over as well. So they would consider they have more vulnerable people in their household. They're not going to want to go to a training ground whereby it's already been proven in Germany, despite the best efforts of everybody, and a country that thought it had cracked it by and large, despite the best efforts of everybody, it can still rear up again. You can still become infected there. They're not going to want to. There's going to be a set number of players that are still concerned about the current situation. So where does that leave us with regard to the competition, the integrity of the competition? And I don't mean the moral integrity of actually putting it back on. I mean the 3 points for a win, who's relegated, so on and so forth. The integrity of the Premier League placings. I think it's gone. I think that has gone. I can see a way forward where if everybody is agreeable and everybody is signing legal waivers and everybody's being as careful as possible, that they could get some sort of sporting show back on. But it needs to be done for the right reasons. And I'm not entirely sure that, bearing in mind, some teams are going to have completely depleted squads, some teams are going to have half depleted squads, and some teams are going to have more or less their strongest teams out. I don't think that's fair. So what do you do if you're this Bundesliga team? If you're then forced into a situation where you've got to play another Bundesliga team who are significantly stronger than you? You're going to do... Look, you're going to do one of three things. You're going to say, oh, do you know what? That's fine. We're fine. If you're mid-table, Gio made this point to me about Everton. If you were Everton, you're not going to win anything. You're not going to get relegated. You probably say, do you know what? That's fine. We'll put the under-23s out, or anybody that's willing to play. It doesn't matter. But if you are a team that's got something to fight for and you're missing 3 players, you're probably going to say, well, hold on, I don't want to do this fixture. This doesn't count. We can't afford to lose points here for this when we are suffering more than our competitors. That's not competitive. And I look at it forward and look at the Premier League and what's going to happen there. And I think, well, if you are going to get football back up and running, and it is going to be with teams that are half unrecognisable. 5 recognisable names, a couple you sort of know, and some others drafted in. Why? Because they're just willing. They're willing to run around, but we're still missing some valuable players. Some players who make a difference. Who make a difference to whether you win or whether you lose. At that point, do you still keep on dishing out points? I do wonder, actually, if there is an agreement to be made here where they get the show back on the road or some form of it, but they also decide to veto the competition, because what you're not getting is a pure version of it. So I think what I'm basically suggesting is, if they're going to do it, get it up there for the right reasons. Get it up there purely for entertainment. Make a deal with the broadcasting companies and saying, look, it may not be the Premier League as you know it, but it's something. It's something for you to screen. It's something for you to broadcast. But nobody's going to suffer in terms of relegation or anything like that because of it. If they've got to do it where they make the next season that does actually get played a 23-team Premier League or so be it. Cross that bridge when you come to it. Make as few losers out of this as possible. Because quite frankly, if you look at a situation where a team cannot field their full strength because a couple of them are isolating, because a couple of them are scared, and they get relegated on the final game of the season by playing against a team with a full strength, then realistically, is that fair? No. I also think, and we've seen it more than anybody else at West Ham, court cases and things like that, I do wonder if it then opens up a whole avenue with clubs, players themselves queuing up outside, I say outside, metaphorically outside, the Court of Arbitration for Sport to get all these things overruled. I think that's a real possibility. How do you circumvent that? Just make them uncompetitive games. And let's be perfectly frank here. If what you're going to do is you're going to try and put on something that you're selling as a Premier League season, but you've got half-strength teams in empty stadiums at neutral venues, you've really got a friendly match anyway.